Thank you for joining me for another episode of Salesforce at Scale. I'm your host, Greg Banks, and today's conversation is one I've genuinely been looking forward to for a while. If you've ever wondered what it looks like to scale Salesforce beyond go live, if you've ever wrestled with how to move from reactive support to strategic partnership, or if you're trying to build teams that perform under pressure without burning out, this episode's just for you. Today, I'm sitting down with one of the busiest and most intentional leaders here at Sirius Solutions, Brandon Wiedemeier. Brandon leads multiple delivery teams, built our managed services division from scratch, and helped shape how we think about long-term platform ownership and advisory services. But what makes this conversation different isn't what Brandon built, it's how he built it. In this episode, you'll hear how managed services evolved from a TaskRabbit admin work group into strategic advisory partnerships, why preparation and leadership philosophy matters more than technical brilliance, and how AI became a force multiplier for delivery teams, not just another buzzword. If you're responsible for scaling Salesforce in a way that lasts, technically and culturally, you'll get practical experience-backed insight from someone who's lived it. Thanks for coming along today. Let's jump right in. All right, this is one I've been looking forward to for a minute. We got one of the busiest guys in our company, Brandon Wiedemeier, who's, amongst other things, Brandon, I'm going to welcome you to the show, but I've got a pretty long introduction of some stats and whatnot, but thanks for coming on today. I really appreciate you making time for me.
Yeah, thanks for having me on here. It's been awesome to see the trajectory of this podcast go through, and just happy to be a part of it.
Fantastic. Good to have you here, man. So just a little bit of background, and I know I'm only capturing half of what you do around here, but start out with Brandon's a husband and a fairly recent father.
Yes, sir.
A little over 6 years with Sirius. We have 8 delivery teams here at Sirius, and Brandon leads 3 of them. Amongst leading the managed service team and the agents as a service division, you're part of the company core leadership team. You help the company align strategy, direction, and execution as it pertains to managed services and the agents as a service division. You've been instrumental in standing up and help grow 2 of our fastest growing divisions at Sirius Solutions. You help with multiple internal initiatives. I didn't even try to list these out, but a couple that I threw out was OpEx Day, leadership stand-ups, HR guidance, et cetera. And I don't want to overlook this. It's been a little while ago now, but you were Employee of the Quarter, Q3 2024. And some of the stats that went into that nomination was Brandon's a true team player. He always goes above and beyond. He developed and run our managed services division. Brandon displays extreme ownership and integrity, transparency in all that he does. He's always focused on bringing ethical and high-performance solutions to all of our clients. And Brandon creates a great environment to work in, making a real difference every day. And though I've never worked for you, I've been around you, and the words nauseatingly happy come to mind. Like Brandon comes into any room, good, bad, or indifferent, and he's always got a positive outlook. He's always got ideas. He always listens first and looks for a way to contribute in a positive way. And as a dad who recently, I've got one kid that's been in the workforce for about 6 years and one who just went into it. I can only hope my kids wind up working for somebody like you one day. I just really appreciate the man you are and how you do what you do. So thanks for coming on here today.
Yeah, thank you. That's quite the introduction there, kind of blushing a little bit in here. And one of the big pieces, I think I'll have a little course correction on here. Nobody works for me. I work for them. I will talk about servitude leadership and going in there. And that's a big piece that really drives me, as you'll see from a lot of the different things and areas that I'm coming in. A lot of what's been awesome here is I've been able to water my grass and been around long enough to be able to see some things bloom. Excited to talk a little bit about that.
As I said, we'll bring a positive spin to everything. So yeah, let's start out. I know none of us were born into the Salesforce thing. So tell me a little bit about Brandon prior to, I always say I tripped and fell into Salesforce. You probably have a more graceful term than that, but tell me a little bit about your life before that.
Yeah. So I grew up in northern Iowa. So, you had alluded to, now I'm living in Minneapolis, Minnesota as a father and a husband. I'm working here at Sirius Solutions. From a young age, I was in the foster care system and was adopted by some amazing parents that really gave me some foundational principles that were, people first. And I know that we talk a lot about that here at Sirius Solutions, but just really made me understand the grander scope of life and what we're trying to do together versus just ones and zeros on a keyboard, right? So I went to Minnesota State University, got a degree in economics. I went and worked for one of the big banks out there. You can guess it's same color as my sweatshirt. And within that one, I did everything from sales to process guides to testing and working through there, but just didn't really have a lot of purpose. And the banking industry and financial industry really started doing a lot of different layoffs time and time again, and it transitioned me to other divisions. Within that, I took the opportunity to take my severance and go back to school. And I went to a coding boot camp. Some of those are really, really great. Some of them are poor. I thought mine was fantastic. It allowed me to understand what's under the hood of the stuff that I'm testing. Within that portion, I was able to build several different apps, and our CEO, Chad Anderson, happened to be in the crowd during a presentation I had. And we had a really wonderful conversation. He said, "Hey, let's get coffee." I go, "Great." So I'm about ready to head to coffee, and I notice there's 4 people on the invite for this coffee. And I go, "Wait a second. I'm going to grab a suit jacket. I'm going to get some more coffee." And next thing you know, I'm in the room with them, and about 5 minutes, and I go, "Gentlemen, is this an interview?" They go, "Well, yes." And I go, "Good. I have 20 questions." And they're like, "What?" And I go, "Well, so I went in there, and I had heard about Salesforce a little bit, just in the news. I'd never really, they call it accidental admin, but I think on other CRMs, that was kind of more of the case. And I said, at the end of the interview in here, I said, "Listen, I may not know a ton about it. Give me 4 hours. I'll get back to you." Went home, researched feverishly. The entire weekend I did as well. And went in and said, "Let's do this, guys." And Chad was great, I'm so grateful for the opportunity that he did, because he allowed me to come in and said, "Hey, let's figure it out. Let's learn." And then, you start hammering Trailhead, right? And start doing that, so within about a month, 2 months, I started getting some certifications, was leading meetings, and then just said, "Hey, what can I do? What can I do to make my client's life better? What can I do to make my coworkers' lives better?" And just dig in there, because not everybody has all the answers. Anybody that does is lying. And what I want to be known for is someone that can go in and say, "Maybe I know, maybe I don't, but I'm going to find out," and kind of go through there. And that built upon my curiosity that I have, and kind of the overall drive to be able to support the individuals around me, and also multiply those efforts within software, in this case, Salesforce. A little bit of into my journey there.
Yeah, powerful words. Makes me think back when I got here and we were bringing in hiring our heroes candidates and fellowships. Every time I would interview a fellow, I would tell them 3 words that as a consultant, you almost never want to say, but to me, they're game changers. That you go from being a consultant to a partner, and that's, "I don't know." If somebody asks you a question, there's nothing wrong with saying that. Go find the answer and come back and prove to them they matter enough for you to do the work. And I have found in my career that's opened more doors than any degree or experience that I've ever had. Is just having a good interactive experience with somebody. So yeah, you walk the talk, man. I'll attest to that and appreciate that attitude. So that kind of talks about your life before Salesforce and what led you into it, as well as what led you into Sirius. When you got here, you've had a substantial growth. When you came on, you were hired as a BA, a business analyst, and largely what that means is you're a good listener, a note taker, but it's a feedback loop, right? You take notes in a way that's conducive to your team consuming them and going building from them. You eventually became a consultant. That effectively means they trust you with the keyboard and actually doing stuff with some of the notes that you took. Then you became a client success manager. We call that an engagement manager today. That largely means you oversee the team's engagement with a client. You watch the timeline, scope, and budget and make sure all those things are positive, communicative things. And I can only imagine, I'm glad you weren't an EM when I got here, because that would have made me look terribly bad. Your note-taking skills are second to none. And then you became a team lead for Team Bravo, who's had quite a few leaders over its years, but stands today as one of the stronger teams at Sirius. But lastly, where I really wanted to kind of hang out for a little bit is you launched managed services. And I'd like to hear a little bit about how that idea came up, what the early days and weeks look like. And I think that was about 4.5 years ago you guys started that, if I'm doing the math right. Talk to me a little bit about some of the milestones of your time leading that.
Yeah. So as an engagement manager, as a previous consultant, we had a lot of long-term relationship and clients with us, right? We had a start and an end point of a project. Due to budget, due to time constraints, things got kicked in the background or backlog. They didn't know the art of the possible. So they would be working through the system, and we developed a really great relationship. And they'd reach out a month later, 2 months later. "Hey, Brandon, can you take a look at this? Hey, I got a lot. Simple things. Can you reset my password? Hey, can you take a look at this dashboard? Hey, instead of having this email notification go out every 45 days, we'd like to bump that to 15 and 15 and 60 days. Little, love working with you, Jane Doe, John Doe. I'll go ahead and do that. I'll do it on my nights and weekends, just as kind of a funsy, if I'm a sucker for work, right? And so we were never billing them, but I started out 5 hours a week, not a problem. Then all of a sudden 10, 15, 20 hours there. And I go, wait a second, these people are trusting me as a partner. There has to be a way to monetize this and also give some structure around what they want. Because, it got to the point where I couldn't abandon my team to work on these other items. And I wanted to give them insights and, hey, yes, I can get this done in 2 weeks, or I can get this done in 4-hour SLA.
Right.
So I worked with our COO, 𝗤𝗵𝗽𝘆, and I said, hey, we got to figure out a way that we can put some structure to this and offer this to our clients and diversify our product base, because we don't want to be just a one-trick pony here. We want to be a one-stop shop. Yes, we're going to take care of you building items. We're also going to maintain them and help them grow further. So we launched the managed services division in January, or step back. We started building the groundwork before we even got our first client, because I was not going to have our client trust us with substantial amounts of money,
Right.
and their product without having some structure around it. So Q3, Q4 of 2021, we started doing that, writing some SOPs, writing how we're going to go about this, testing it internally as well. And then with some of our clients that we had really longer term relationships with, that we're okay with being our guinea pig. And then we officially launched it in January of 2022. It was a one-man show kind of with myself, but we quickly, I had reached max capacity of the time that I had, started hiring on. We brought on Olivia Miller, who is an absolute rock star with us on our dev team right now. She has grown out of the nest, which was hard for me, but they say it's a good reflection of leadership when they move up, but it still hurts. I talk to her often about this, but she was instrumental in helping me understand the technical frameworks that we needed in there. I was responsible for the sales, the generalized SOPs, the communication internally, and getting serious solutions on board with us. Trying to convert managed services from being a place where, hey, this backlog items, we don't want to deal with this.
Right.
We want to do these big projects, to coming in and saying, hey, we can be part of this entire life cycle with the client, and maintain those long-term relationships and even bridge between projects as well, too.
Fair, fair. Yeah, and I want to make sure we kind of pause here to define this. So a lot of what we do in the consultancy is we connect with a client. They have big ideas. We break those into bite-sized pieces, articulate them, and we hand them off to what we call our delivery teams, right? So we have a team that comes in, cradle to grave, discovery to launch, right? That handles that whole thing. But anybody who's been in any technical space knows that's just not how life is built, right? You may do a project, but inevitably you're halfway, 3/4 of the way through, and you go, what about? And that's a bunch of stuff that doesn't fit in the budget or the timeline of what you initially agreed to. So what do you do with that stuff? And, if we can squeeze it in, there's budget left. Yeah, we try to do what we can, but inevitably it leaves a client in want, right? They want more, but they don't want to sign another big contract. And the kind of ideas they got, to your point, it might be 10 list views. It might be reports and dashboards. It just doesn't feel like a big delivery thing. It's just this kind of this awkward adjacent thing. So the kind of stuff you're talking about is the other stuff. And it doesn't mean you don't do small projects within, like you might do a small discovery and a small build out of a small thing. So it's like delivery within it. But describe for the listeners, what's the nature of your relationship with a client? Like, how do you structure, when you talk about adding some structure to it, what does that look like?
Yeah. So, there's a few things that how we engage with our clients. Some people want us to do that never ending to-do list. Hey, we got 15 things, go ahead, get them taken care of. Other people want to be taught how to fish. Great. Let's go ahead and do this. You want me to build a dashboard? I'll build one and then I'll show you how to build them, and you can continue to go from there. Right. Also with Salesforce too, there is always ever changing items, not only with their business requirements or what they want, but Salesforce is always changing too as well. So keeping those lights on. The framework that we like to be able to do is meet them where they're at, right? If they want to go ahead and give us a checklist of 1 through 10, knock those on out, we're going to go ahead and do that. But how we structure the framework is we do service contracts. So we do a monthly bucket of hours that says, hey, we're going to be here for you. You're going to be able to pick up the phone, email us, Slack us, click up, however you want to be able to do it, contact us, and we're going to be available, and we're going to make sure we reserve our time and our capacity. Because the product that we have here is 6 inches between your ears, right? And making sure that we're going to be available for you as that SME, as that reference person for you at any any given time. And we're going to be able to take your request, understand, hey, this is going to take, 3 months, or you know what, I can go ahead and knock this out in 5 minutes and you'll be on your way. And we'll work from there. So we do have in our contracts here a 4-hour SLA. I've never even seen us even get past 2 hours
Mhm.
because we want to be spot on. We want to be
Right.
that person for you, that phone a friend. Hey, I just want to do a sanity check here. Does this sound
Mhm.
about right? Great. Awesome.
Yeah.
Have a wonderful rest of the day. So kind of a comfort blanket as well too.
Yeah, I'm having some PTSD flashbacks. I recall when I first tripped and fell into the space, I was a program manager. I owned the solution. I had 500 users. I had 9 businesses. And I had an implementation partner that was there, and the time came for them to step away, and the fear of God came over me. It's like,
Yeah.
we're gonna sit down next week, Greg, and do a knowledge transfer. I'm like, you have way too much faith in my brain. Like, there's only so
Yeah.
much you're gonna be able to put in. So what does that look like? And we crawled and walked and eventually ran and flew. They didn't hang around. I'll give them that. In fact, I don't think that I hired another implementation partner of any kind until I hired Sirius, probably 8, 9, 10 years after the fact. We were 100% standalone in house. But to your point, I think a lot of clients we do delivery for, they get to into that thing. A lot of times they're brand new to Salesforce, or maybe they did some things on their own, but when they did something really substantial, they go, we don't really want to own this. We want somebody to come help
Yeah.
us. And at the end of that, then they're kind of left in that, I don't want to write another contract, but I really don't want you to leave. So you've kind of become a kind of a halfway house, so to speak, of helping them get to that place where they are comfortable. And Brady's got a million analogies for this: the phone a friend, teleadmin, whatever you want to call that. The fact of the matter is you have a recurring period of time, 6 months, I think is a typical contract, X amount of hours in that. And on a weekly basis, you get an update with how many hours are left. You define this week's priorities. We pivot resources to align to what your current needs are. So we understand in a company, life comes at you, right? Life be lifing. So
Yeah.
it's Brandon's team that will be matched with you and help you go as fast or as slow as you want. If it's, I'm going to build one, you watch. Okay, now you build one, I watch. Third one you build, I'm going to lunch. We'll check in and see how you do. And the idea is we don't want you tethered to us at the same dependent level forever. What we want to do is help you raise the foundation of knowledge you have. So if you continue to need us, great, but it's because you're growing and you want us to help you grow. So it's been great to watch. I did not realize how I started here in February 22. You started that in January. You literally kicked it off when I got here. I remember Olivia showing up, and I remember the crying that went on when she
There
when she
was.
left.
There was.
But I mean, it's your baby, right? I mean, and I will say, I've never worked for a company like this where you see so much love go into how we treat our clients. And you walk, again, as I said earlier in the intro, you walk the talk, and that makes it a whole lot easier for everybody around you to do the same.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
so what MS looked like back then and what it looks like today, substantially different. So give me kind of a 10,000-foot view of where you're sitting today, and then we'll look for any major milestones between then and now that you want to call out.
Yeah, I would say, managed services really started out as just kind of, hey, we're going to do some admin work, some staff aug stuff for you. We're going to be that phone a friend, where we still do that, right?
Mhm.
But where we're really kind of morphing into is more of a senior, more mature org, where it's advisory services, where it can be developmental services as well. Managed services, it was, hey, you have Brandon here, you have Olivia, you have, Jane Doe, John Doe that can help you out. Now we are the bridge to the entire breadth of Series Solutions. Okay. So yes, I'm going to be the point person on the touch points. I'm going to be working with you, advising me in there. But hey, you want to talk about agents as a service? Oh, you want to talk about AI agent lab? Oh, you have some CPQ questions. Oh, you want to build an API? I may not be, as I had stated previously, I may not, and I am not the expert there. But what I can do is I have the entire breadth and access of Series Solutions behind me. And I think that's really where it's pivoted, where people can jump in and help out and kind of be that celebrity appearance, which is great. And I think we've gone from being task rabbits to being consultative. Hey, you want us to go ahead and, adjust and do a security model for you here, and it's going to be based on profiles. You know what? Salesforce is actually going to be transitioning into a more of a permission set thing at the end of 2026. So while we're doing this, let's not just solve the stuff that let's take our entire knowledge base behind us and solve for the future and future proof it there. And so that's
Absolutely.
where it's really morphed from being kind of the, hey, what can we do for you, we're here to help, to, hey, this is what you need to be able to do to be able to get to your goals here. Additionally, to a little bit larger view is, instead of going and taking having them deliver the technical requirements. That's what you may see in some other shops or consulting firms out here. We're not interested in that. What we are interested in is, what is your business requirements? Tell us about your business model. And we are in basically every industry right now, but we will go ahead and translate those into technical requirements. We'll translate them in there because that is what you're paying us for. If you're doing foundational repair, you're not fingers on the keyboard. You're not privy to that as much. Whereas we can go ahead and make that into the technical requirements for you.
And that's awesome to hear. I'm trying to think back over the things that I observed about MS Group. I remember you starting with Olivia, and you eventually hired some more people. At some point, you had more work than that group of people could do.
Yeah, that was about mid 2024. To that point, we don't need a managed services, a large structure and team in there. Having smaller individuals that can ideate off each other and work with each other was going to fit more of our model that we needed than having, the standard structure of solution architect and engagement manager and going from
Sure.
that perspective.
Sure. And you going from a model of being task rabbits to what you are now also changed the nature of the types of people that you needed on that team as well, right? At some point, what you don't want to do is set it up in a way where you become a bottleneck, right? You want so that when somebody needs help, they're getting the right person as quickly as possible. At the end of the day, we're effective in getting them where they want to go, not just keeping our team, full at capacity, so to speak. All right. So that was mid 2024, and that led into last year. And you and I have had this conversation offline before. Last year was a year of change. Two letters that seemed to flip the whole world inside out and backwards: AI. I remember this feels like 5 years ago now, but at the beginning of 2025, this leadership put a challenge out. We were going to have an AI Super Bowl. We divided the company up into teams, not the teams we're normally constructed of, but otherwise, and set goals. And the idea was, let's go learn AI, but let's not go put our head in a book and just take a trailhead and say we did it. Like, let's come up with some real scenarios and go attack it. I know that brought changes for your team as well, and another division for you to run. Talk to me about 2025. I mean, if you think back and you're 70 years old, you want to write your autobiography. What happened to Brandon that year? And we're not just talking about kids coming into your life. What were some things that you recall looking back at last year that really changed what you do and how you do it?
Yeah. I think, taking kids out of it is kind of difficult. Because Tim Harding always says, people always say it's not personal, it's business, but all business is personal. And I think at Serious Solutions, why I mention this is because AI for me was not necessarily another thing to be able to dive into. It was another thing to be able to figure out how I can augment that, to be able to be a little bit stronger focused, because I had this responsibility, as you can see
Right.
the lovely art behind me, that was
Awesome.
growing with my wife. And so within that, I needed to understand, how can I go ahead and release some and delegate and elevate, release some of the responsibilities and do those properly while also maintaining my high level standard of delivery that I had. And that is really where AI came in. And it was, one of these things that we had always thought about, we've seen in movies for a long time, and it started out, okay, proof an email for me. And then all of a sudden our clients started asking us about it. And we started seeing, larger applications where we could take some of that mundane work and really focus on the high thought delivery that we need to be able to do. As managed services have changed from being task rabbit, simple admin work, into a little bit more strategic advisory and high technical delivery, we needed that space and that time. And that's where AI was able to augment us. And it started out very iterative approach, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, this feels like it was so long ago, but I've been around the ecosystem long enough to know when Lightning came out and when Wave came out. And these things, I mean, my philosophy was, let it sit around for 2 or 3 years before you really get involved with it. Let somebody else be the guinea pig and figure out what it needs to be before I get involved. But AI was just something you could not ignore. It was everywhere. It's in your email. It's in your CRM. It's in your BI tool, whatnot. It was everywhere. So yeah, I remember internally obviously we always have work going on. So certain teams had more work going than they had time to study, but other teams had more time. And you guys were able to really flex and come out as a leaders on learning how to use that. Not, some of that might be as a part of AI technology. What you just alluded to is kind of more of AI as assistant. Right. Let me take these mundane things that I got to do. Who in the world's going to object to working smarter? Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. And the older we get, the busier we get. It seems there's more and more need for that. So good deal. Good deal. Turn the page just a little bit. We've talked all work up until this point, and I know you're fine with that. We could keep doing this. You love talking about Sirius and the things you've learned and the people you've met and the clients that we've had great long-standing relationships with, but that's not all we are. Right. So I mentioned in the beginning, you're a dad and a husband. What kind of things do you do outside of work just to, this is not a stressless job. You may make it look that way, but there's definitely an accumulation that has its effect over time. So what are some things you do outside of work that really help charge you, make you recharge, if you will, so you come to the table fresh every time?
Yeah. So no, number one thing in my life, right? We had talked about positivity previously. It's not easy waking up every morning and going, okay, I'm going to do this, because there are challenges. There are challenges from, the baby keeping you up all night. There's challenges just in the world out there. There's challenges personal. I mean, 2020 was a year of very, very, very highs with my daughter, and then extreme lows. I actually lost my best man around this time last year in a very unfortunate accident. And trying to be able to balance all of those and understand that, okay, work is not just a retreat to get away from things, right? I can still be positive there and I can still engage there, but I also need to have other areas to be able to recharge. And understanding that we can be okay with the lows and we can be okay with the highs, but to keep driving forward here. And that's where positivity, or so attitude and effort, right, are the only things that I found out that really I could ever control. That is as plain and simple. Everything else is out of my control. They're really, and you just almost have to laugh sometimes too, when things go really crazy, because it's just like, well, I tried
Yeah.
and here we are, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
No doubt.
so, but outside of work, I live in the great northern land. So you'll get sometimes a northern accent from me. So Minnesota, land of 10,000 lakes. I'm always by lakes, by water, by streams. I'm very fortunate to be able to have a house that's right next to some of our premier lakes here in Minnesota, which is awesome. Speaking of the house, I have a 100-year-old house that we did a massive renovation at. And that was a learning experience. That's for sure. I
Been
also
there.
learned that my wife is not one to be project managed. She is my wife, as she's told me. So learning that as well, right? Growing in a
Check
in
your
a newer
skills at the door,
relationship.
boy. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I asked her one time what her deliverables were for while we were working, and she was just like, "I'm going to let you do that again." And I go, "Okay, yep, that's a smart. Thank you. I appreciate that opportunity."
Oh, man.
Uh, but so
That's good.
a lot of renovations in the house. I'm a Iowa farm country boy, even though I live in the big city here. So always gardening, always outside landscaping, doing that. Really huge in the community. Growing up in a very small town, my dad and mom were everything: mayors and city council people and volunteers. And they told me something a long time ago that I kind of take to heart, that 80% of the work is done by 20% of the people. And so be that 20%, Brandon. And so always in the community, volunteering, Earth Day, different things like that. I'm a block leader, which is kind of interesting as well. And then I'm known as being an extrovert, and my wife is even more extrovert than I am. So we host all the time. And it's
Awesome.
fantastic. A lot of dishes that come with it, but we're
Yeah, a
getting
lot of
better.
memories, though. A lot of
Yeah, a lot of
memories, right?
memories,
Yeah,
a lot of memories. So,
yeah.
I think just real big things that keep me grounded and keep me going is this constant theme of gratitude. We had talked about attitude and effort, but to keep my attitude sharp, I always need to look and be grateful for things. Because yes, there are people that have more, but the number one thing that I have that some people may never have is I have enough friends. I have enough family. I have a great working environment. I have great coworkers. I have my health, and couldn't be more grateful for that. And I try to remember that every single time, because, like as you alluded to, stress of the job, man, right? And there's a lot that goes into it, and the stress for me used to just be something of keep me high strung. But I realized what the stress really, if you boil down to it, you really cracked it open. It can be one of two things. One, self doubt, right? Oh, am I going to be able to do this? Or two, where I like to go to is the reason why I'm stressed is because I want to deliver. I want to uphold my accountability. I want to be able to deliver for these clients. I want to be able to do what I said I want to be able to do. And if I look at stress through that lens, it allows me when we inevitably fail. I can fail forward. Hey, I gave it my best effort. I gave it my best attitude. I tried the best I could. And let's go in there. That has de-escalated any type of tensions, generally with my clients, because I can be real with them, and they feel the same thing. And so, I can take my personal life attitude and the things that I do and really easily apply those to work, and being here at Serious Solutions, where it's not necessarily work, it's an extension of what I'm trying to do and an
Yeah.
extension of my values.
We didn't talk about this, but that felt like a setup. So there's no way we're going to get out of this without Brandon talking about the 7 Ps.
Yes.
So, and I'm listening to what you're saying in the back of my mind. I'm like, I got to just ask him and let him throw this out here, because people need to know there's a lot of intention around what you do and how you do it. What I just heard you say is there's something to be said for just being a good person, period. And if you do it in your life, you're going to naturally bring it to work. And if you bring it to work, you're going to naturally bring it to a relationship with a client. If you bring it to a relationship to a client and life starts lifing, right? Now we enter this thing with grace and as a partner, not just a customer vendor relationship. Yeah, we have hard days around here. At the end of the day, people are spending a lot of money. They're generally desperate, generally trying to, they're up against the deadline. And if we show up chaotic and panicked and stressed, it's just not going to go good places. So please, for the sake of our audience, let's talk about the 7 Ps. Talk
Yes.
about why this matters to you and why you tell everybody about it at least once a week.
Yeah.
It's a great lesson. I'm being a little facetious, but these are things you can take away from this particular episode that will make a difference in your life. I promise. So, Brandon, the floor is yours.
So, for sure. So we're going to do the 7 Ps. We're also going to do the snowplow, because that's a leadership philosophy, beginning and end. So the 7 Ps is prior preparation prevents pretty poor performance positively. I think it derives maybe from a military phrase, and I think there might be some different language or
Different
colorful
words.
language that maybe that are in there. But that's something that my dad always taught me from the beginning, right? When I was in sports, what ended up happening at the end of the game, I was always, Dad, why are you not as agitated that we lost? And he goes, because of the 7 Ps, man. You didn't do the prior preparation. The end result is about your preparation. If you can go in and start preparing and do your best foot forward and have that list and have those actions in there, it's going to come in there. Kobe Bryant was one of my favorite athletes. Although, he's a Laker instead of a Minnesota Timberwolf, but he always talked that the preparation made him cool, calm, collected in the moments of chaos, last second shot, that type of thing, because he had already done that. And so what I always try to do is have that vision, have that idea, because if there's 100 scenarios in any given day that can happen, right? But if I can have at least a generalized idea of how I would respond to 99 of them, I'm really going to be able to bring the temperature down. And then instead of coming from an area of reactiveness, panic, chaos, I can come and say, yeah, we've thought about this. We've already had this. This is our scenarios that we can go ahead and do. And then that is back to effort, right? You put in the effort ahead of time to be able to approach it from there. And so, I had alluded to previously, our product that we have here at Serious Solutions is here, right? If you're not taking care of this, and stress is going to be the biggest indicator of poor work, poor delivery, you're going to get burnt out soon. You're going to get burnt out quickly. How do we go ahead and alleviate that? And I always find that with preparation. And it's one of my favorite things to say, because one, it rolls off the tongue, and two, it always makes people laugh a little bit.
Indeed.
So
Yeah.
the next thing I wanted to go on is, so we talked about the 7 Ps, but I wanted to talk about the snowplow philosophy. So I'd alluded to Minneapolis, Minnesota. We get a lot of snow up here. It's cold. It's northern lands, right? But snowplows are kind of folk local heroes around here. And the reason is because they go out when we're in, right? But they don't go out in July. They don't go out and say, oh, can we, plow your driveway today when it's 95 degrees out? They don't do that. What they do is they clear the runway. They don't care if you're a cop, doctor, software consultant, any other person. They don't care what your job is. Their goal is to clear the pathway so that you can do your job successfully. And so I try to prepare that runway through the 7 Ps so that you can go in there and do that. And that allows every other person to go ahead and rely on their creativity, allows them to know that they have the tools and they have someone that's going to back them up and be able to do that. And not going to have someone that's micromanaging them, telling them that you need to do every step of the way. People are our product here, okay? And we hire very, very smart people, and always hire smarter people than you. Best advice you can do. And I have. My team is far smarter than I am.
Yeah,
And so
indeed.
my goal is to clear the runway for them by preparation, make sure that they can have all the tools that they can do. And it's been a pretty good recipe for success within managed services, agents as a service, and any other leadership initiatives that I've worked on.
Yeah. I glossed over this at the beginning of one of the dozen or so things that we said you're in charge of, but I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure you were one of architecting OpEx days. And for us, that's Operational Excellence Day. We're in technology, right? The audience for this podcast is technology. At the end of the day, a lot of times you just kind of, you feel like you're the tail on the dog. You're being wagged all over the place. You know, releases come, acquisitions or divestitures come, integrations come, whatever. And so many times you just feel like you're playing a game of catch up. And I hadn't thought about it until you were describing kind of the snowplow idea. But at the end of the day, as a leader of the company, one of the leaders, when we look around at the things that we're doing on any given day, we're always learning constantly. But there is a very intentional effort that goes on here. And we've started doing these quarterly, and these are just absolutely invaluable. My background's engineering. So I did this at my last company. We did them once a month. But at the end of the day is based on the projects you just did, based on the product changes you know that are coming, based on new offerings we're going to offer as a company, whatever those things are. Take the time to invest in your people. You live this every day, I know, and I think all of our leaders here do, but certain situations avail more opportunity for it than others. But yeah, I didn't want to gloss over OpEx Day in light of what you just spoke to, because that's so important. We are a 100% remote team. I don't know if most people know that, but we're almost never in a room together unless we're on site with a client. And it's really, really difficult for a lot of type A personalities, a lot of nerds that go heads down and just go churn out some stuff. And you look up, and I haven't had a non-work conversation with anybody in 3 years. So there's a lot of things that we do here, and I know you're the brains behind a lot of that. Like, the healthy people with a healthy mindset are just more productive. That's a fact.
Mhm.
And it makes for, we're a better vendor to our clients if we come to the table that way. So, man, God, I knew this was going to go fast, because you and I have had
Yeah.
a dozen or more conversations. We talk every 6 months, whether we need it or not, but we really dive in when we do. But I really wanted to close this out with some feedback of some of your current and former teammates. I won't call them people that work for you. Just you'll go ahead and match your shirt. These are really good ones. Most won't surprise you, I don't think, but
Yeah.
these are quotes from people all over the organization. He brings great energy and sets a positive tone for the team. He's always upbeat and optimistic, even when we're navigating tough challenges. He has a great ability to focus on what's working and build on strengths rather than dwelling on what's not. Encourages open dialogue and makes everyone feel heard and valued. Super approachable and genuinely cares about people and their success. Brings a reliable, grounded leadership style. He's a man of his word who consistently goes to bat for the people under him. Creates an open, feedback-friendly environment by genuinely listening and taking real action on what he hears. You probably know who's saying some of these. Highly detailed-oriented and thoughtful in his decision-making, always balancing optimism with clarity and what needs to get done. Makes time for his team no matter how busy things get, showing that he values people as much as he values outcomes. Very personable, very empathetic to people and situations. Understands when the workload's too much or identifies areas of intervention where intervention is needed, and hops in to ensure we can be the best employees for our clients. He's not afraid to be the bad guy so that we can shine to our clients. Always so positive and happy that I had to come in at least twice. Always taking notes and stays on top of things with his many lists of lists, and a super great friend that will always listen and be there for you no matter what. Your one note should be published somewhere in the Smithsonian. It truly is something to behold. I haven't had those skills on my best day, but that's why if we were the same, one of us wouldn't be necessary. So,
Yeah.
Brandon,
Mhm.
man, I just truly, as a coworker, but more as a friend, you're one of the first names I remember, like, having some one-on-one conversation. We might have been coffee buddies. That's a whole
Yeah.
nother
I
episode
think so.
early
Yep.
on. But I just remember being remarkably impressed by you, despite being probably 20 years my junior. You had some good lessons under your belt, and wherever those things came from, it's just a true honor to work with you. And as has been said, anybody who's worked for you, no matter what you call it, that's how they see it, and they all are better people for it. So, man, I just really appreciate you giving us time today. But thank you for who you are and what you do here at Sirius. Truly an honor, my friend.
Yeah. Thank you. Those words, they mean a lot, man. I mean, we put a lot of time and effort. We spend a lot of time with each other. They kind of almost give me a little tear, because at the end of the day, those are the type of words I want to be known for,
Yeah,
right? I can do some things with a computer, which is great, but I think that the people and the personal touch is where I want to spend, most of
yeah,
my time with. So
yeah.
that's awesome. And thank you so much, Greg, for having me on. It's absolutely been a pleasure. And I know that I have so many more conversations ahead with you, which is awesome. And a shout out for my wife as well. She was really excited that I was going on here because you've given us some incredible marital advice and some great advice as I'm raising my daughter here as well. So thank you so much for that.
Almost made him speechless, y'all. Almost did it. No, man. It's just truly been an honor, and we've seen some good and bad seasons come and go, man. But my wife asked me a lot of times how I always wind up with these companies where I'm working crazy hours and stressed and whatever. I'm like, let me tell you, every once in a while, you'll find yourself around people you just want to be around. And in different men's groups that I've been in over the years, we talk about that. If you go do hard things with people, it changes you and it gives you something to lean on. You just know that it's there. And it's what we find in family, right? I don't have to give my wife a 20-minute intro before I unload that something hard happened. She's going to know, and we'll work through those things. But yeah, what we've been through here together truly makes for great working relationships, man. So thanks for your time today.
Thank you so much, friend.
Have a good one, buddy. See ya.
You too, sir. Thank you.
Well, Brandon, thank you again for the time, the wisdom, and the intentional leadership you bring not just to Sirius, but to the broader Salesforce community. And to all of you listening, thank you for being a part of Salesforce at Scale. If today's conversation helped you think differently about leadership, managed services, or scaling Salesforce the right way, here's my ask. Follow or subscribe to the show so you don't miss future episodes. Leave us a review. It genuinely helps more leaders find these conversations. And share this episode with a peer, a technical lead, or a business leader navigating platform scale. If you have any follow-up questions or you want to continue the conversation, please reach out to us at SiriusTalk@SiriusSolutions.com. You'll find links and recommended resources in the show notes to go deeper on topics we covered today. And a special thanks to Jason Fowler for allowing us to use his song, Mystery Road, as our theme music. Until next time, build well, lead well, and we'll see you on the next episode of Salesforce at Scale.